All right, we're live. Welcome to Dive into World Building. Today we're meeting on a different day, and so we have a pretty small group, but I'm really grateful to Paul and Morgan for being here. I hope you won't stay muted the entire time, Paul, because me and Morgan are going to have to hold up the conversation, but we'll do our best.
No, it's just avoiding the traffic sounds.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Well, so today I wanted to talk about attraction, affection, and love. And what got me thinking about this? Well, it was that for some reason, I mean, they're coming by all the time on Facebook, right? All those things about how, oh yes, this book talks mentions breasts 41 times.
Oh God, I saw that, yes.
And I was like, maybe we should talk about how people talk about, I think it's not even just attraction, affection, and love. It's how people think about them and how people talk about them.
That's a huge topic that's going to take like 18 dives to cover, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But you have to start somewhere.
Yes, we do. We do have to start somewhere.
Yeah, so I think it has a lot of things inside it, right? It has gaze inside it. Gendered or non-gendered gaze, or
Yeah, we have this large topic. So where should we start?
Well, so this is what we do. We find our way into a spot and then we pursue that spot for a little while. I think maybe because of the Facebook post, we should talk about the attraction piece first, right? Because really what we're doing in world building is we're not just creating, landscapes and the city infrastructure. we're also sending people to interact in these environments, and they are products of their environment. So, and I think sometimes we see examples of characters acting too much like they're coming from our world. And my classic example, of course, is the way that the Fuzzy books by H. Beam Piper are all full of lots and lots of men drinking cocktails.
Yep, smoking, drinking. Yeah, just, right. It's 1950s in space.
Yeah, we're in space, but we're still drinking cocktails as if we were on Earth in 1960. So, we've talked about alcohol. That's a totally different thing.
It is. Yeah.
But I have a way to start chiseling into this, because there's 3 of us in this chat, and I am the only cis male here. So I will speak about the giant elephant in the room. And the fact is that for many people, science fiction and fantasy is mostly, what they wrongly think is mostly written by white men, and that white male gaze has a certain point of view that is considered to be the dominant view in fantasy and science fiction. Wrongly, I will add, but that's what the default that everyone that, like, say Kate Elliott wrote that essay, The Omniscient Breasts, against that sort of that the male gaze, like he lingered longingly over her creamy white breasts, or worse. We'll throw the book across him when you get a male writer and the woman is obsessed with her breasts, because I have not met a woman yet who.
Yes, we haven't met anyone who is obsessed with her own breasts.
Mammograms are aside.
Breast might be another thing, because the thing that it's not the appearance, it's the carrying the freaking things around part that really takes the most part of it. Attention that we have here.
I'm going to write that down.
I mean, aside from pornography and pornography, I can't think of a comparable thing where a male body part is so addressed as much as female breasts are.
Yeah, they're sort of emblematic, right? They've become a sort of icon of I need to describe attraction to a female bodied person. I'm gonna zoom in on the boobs, right?
There's something about the person who's doing that writing, who's doing the description, and it says something about what they think about their audience.
Right.
I mean, look at comics and the infamous boob window.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's in all sorts of science fiction and fantasy media that's mainly written, that is written by, men.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying oh God, I was about to say a bad. Okay. Not all male writers do this, but too many do that. It's a stereotype that has to be fought against, not only by women writers, but by male writers as well, because it's just like, why should we objectify half of the species? So
yes. But let's recall that we're not talking about feminism or objectification in it per se. We're talking about the question of attraction. So for example, let me give you a counterpoint. So I wrote this story called At Cross Purposes, which I actually don't know if you ever read, any of you, but doesn't matter. It had otter aliens in it. And that's why I'm known as that science fiction author who likes otters in some circles.
Yes, I did read that. The other book, the other story, yeah.
It was an analog.
Yes.
And what I tried to do was, I had one of my points of view was the female otter alien. And I tried to make sure that whenever she was describing the other otters, that she would indicate whether she found them attractive. But needless to say, the otters did not have boobs. And so what they had was, they had these sort of bald areas between their eyes and their ears that would actually have sort of ridges or patterns or these sort of various things going on. And whenever I talked about it in the otter point of view, I called it brow character. And I specifically was like, I gave her a moment to say, well, he had very masculine brow character, right? And she said it in an admiring way about this one other, creature that they were interacting her with. So my point being that I decided that I was going to sort of go way off the beaten track in terms of how to describe a character feeling attraction for another character. And in her case, she was attracted by the masculine brow character of another alien, right? So I guess one of the things that I want to say in this discussion is that all bets are off if we're not in our own world, right? I mean, there's no particular reason why we have to choose any particular one thing to base our levels of attraction on, right?
Or a particular physical feature, or a physical feature at all.
Yeah, we don't even need to use a physical feature. We don't need to feel constrained, right?
And the question of, and this can say something about the characters, whether they are attracted by something that the object of their attraction can control.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That connects back to what we were talking about before. Are they attracted to something that the object of the attraction can control?
Do you think it's easier to do just straight up aliens like you did in your analog story than just humans in another world? Because since you're already starting with a template that's not human, it's easy to build upon that to think, oh, well, what would otter aliens find attractive?
Very likely because it's all about expectations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So it's much easier to do aliens because people are ready to have their expectations broken when they talk about aliens. I mean, more ready, right? We still had very booby aliens in Star Trek in the day.
Yes, the Orion slave women.
Yeah, even TNG had that big scoop neck thing that Troy used to wear, and
yeah. Until they got the episode where they had the other captain for a while, and he said, "Take that off," and she never wore it again.
Yep. So, yeah. So I think that's a question of perceived audience, right?
Yeah.
But expectations is the real question here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we delve into expectations, we could actually get to some interesting places, right? So your perceived audience is one group of people whose expectations you might cater to, right? But you can also examine the expectations of people in the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a character who finds a woman attractive because she has a streamlined figure. She looks very athletic.
Okay.
Right? But like literally he says she has a streamlined figure.
Is that a comment on not just the appearance, but the functionality of the appearance? Maybe because
I think one of the things about this particular character, the one with the streamlined figure, is being considered by another character who is, they're both bodyguards.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that he admires about her is her professionalism, right? And part of her professionalism is her figure, in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it indicates that she keeps herself in top form physically, which means she's good at her job and a very dedicated and determined person, in addition to the fact that, she might look good. So, yeah.
So how would you do that on a societal level?
Well, so I haven't actually done it on a societal level at this point. I mean, people are still admiring each other's shape. I don't tend to go for body parts really very much until way, way further down the line. It's like my pattern is not to go straight for the boobs or whatever. I'll do facial features or that kind of stuff. So I suppose in some ways I've already made alterations to some of the stereotypical patterns.
Mm-hmm. Because now I'm thinking of in human anthropology, I mean, breasts weren't always the be all and end all of assumed default of attraction. It took time to focus the male gaze there, and now I'm thinking of the Fritz Leiber story, Coming Attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read it?
No.
Okay, it's a post nuclear war story set in the ruins of New York. And I mean, the United States is still going concern, but it's weakened, as is Russia, because they had a nuclear exchange. And an Englishman comes to wander New York, and clothing has changed. I mean, instead of wearing, I mean, in the wake of wearing gas masks, women wear regular masks. And there's a comment in the story how that men's gaze have gone to women's faces as the primary source of attraction. And so women keep their faces masked all the time as a sense of mystery. And there's even a mention that there's a woman walking around with naked boobs and nobody cares because everyone's more interested in what's behind the mask on her face.
Oh yeah, the characters are, and then the readers are also very interested in the naked boobs, no doubt.
Yeah, because
what an interesting little twist.
Yes, yeah, it's a classic.
So
you can change society and change that focus, but you have to provide some world building, explain why it's there, and a nuclear war and gas masks and everything else explains nicely in that story how you could get a change in that default assumption from breasts to something else as a primary source of attraction for entire society.
Well, and I think in fact that Anne Leckie has done something interesting. She hasn't really centered attraction on the hands, but she's definitely made it clear that hands are sort of intimate things that you don't expose with the wearing of the gloves.
Oh yeah, this reminds me of a novel I'm actually reading now, so I don't know how it's all going to play out. It's called Implanted by Lauren Tafo. It's cyberpunky, and there's a lots of interconnectivity between people based on technology, and most people going on wearing gloves because if you grasp each other with the hands, your neural things will connect, and there's a very intimate sort of thing. So people go around gloves as a normal thing, and there's all sorts of sort of psychological and technological connectivity rather than just physical attraction.
Interesting. Yeah.
Societal level things, within the story that aren't as dramatic as nuclear war and masks are sometimes described as being observed in the breach, that a human will come in or someone from our world will come in and act in some way that is completely in line with us, and everybody else in the story in that world will look at them and say, what is wrong with you? Were you raised by wolves? Only, what if they, which in I'm sorry, Juliet, I should know the names of this story.
That's okay.
If people were raised by wolves, they would be lucky to.
You're making me think of Jack Vance's The Moon Moth, where the main character is an ambassador to this planet where everyone uses musical instruments and sings their way through society. And he's a terrible singer and terrible at music. And so he's looked down at having very low status and looked on as being barely above a barbarian because he's not adapted to that sort of social skill. And when he starts actually doing things, and the most horrible thing is, it's another mask story. The most horrible thing is to not have a mask at all. I mean, everybody wears a mask to basically say who they are, and you change masks, and the better the mask, the higher your status. And slaves wear crappy masks, but if you have no mask at all, you are unclean and killed. And it nearly happens to the character at one point.
I'm guessing.
Yes, it's another classic. Usually,
yeah. So, okay. Well, I think one of the things that's worth pointing out here is that in our own world, there are many different things that people can find attractive. Right? But only a few things that we find appropriate to talk about. Right?
Yeah.
So more things can be attractive than can be spoken about. You could easily go somewhere with that. Like if you go up to somebody who's not your child and say, "You really smell nice," it's kind of like, what? Right?
Just a little bit creepy.
Right? I mean, it's not okay, right? You don't walk up to some random person and tell them they smell good. It's just, right?
Or expressing a negative attraction, a negative physical reaction to a child. You don't say, "Hey, I think your child is ugly." No one ever does that unless they're willing to get themselves pounded. Even if you think that, you don't never would say that. That's a societal taboo.
Well, sure. I think that's a negativity thing, which is a little bit of a different parameter, but you're definitely, that's true.
That there's a cultural thing there, though. I mean, no, you would never come right out and indicate that you truly believe somebody's child is ugly. But there are cultures where you don't say this kid is pretty because you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah. It's sort of like jinxing. Yeah.
But no, but actually in this society, people do say that. They do say, well, not so much your kid is ugly, but they'll say your kid is clumsy or stupid or something. People will rag on the other people's children. And in the same way that men mostly will go out of their way to tell a woman she does not fit their idea of beauty or someone they'd like to have sex with, or though that's not actually what they want. And I'm not going to say what, I'm not going to go into detail about what I think they want, but
yeah, is that what they call negging, or is negging slightly different?
Negging is different. Negging is when you're actually trying to get that woman in a position where you can do things at her.
Okay.
Or not with her. That's the difference between, with and to or at. And these guys who will go out of their way to tell a woman that she is not attractive, that she doesn't fit their idea, what they're saying is, you're not a woman that I want to do something to or at. Because they don't understand that women are people that you do things with.
Yeah, sure.
Negging is a pickup technique, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of gross.
I'd like to see a society where some guy comes in and does that, either the negging or the just announcing that to a woman that she's not, or somebody that they are not his idea of beauty, and have society actually have the other people in the area actually just be appalled or slap him down, or actually do something that says, you're not civilized. You need to shut up and walk away or grow up.
Hi, Che.
So there's talking about attraction and talking about how you're not attracted to somebody. What is it? What is it you are expected to say? What is it you are expected to not say? And why do you say these things?
Yeah. So a lot of cultures, you're not expected to say a whole lot at all, right? And in some ways, the closer you get to somebody, the less you're expected to say. But yeah, I just think it's kind of interesting. So if we're going into a fictional situation and we're talking about people who feel attracted to one another, we really need to broaden our horizons, and we also need to be asking very explicit questions, not sexually explicit questions, but very specific questions about how you talk about things, right? What are the traditions for how you talk about something? Because there's actually there can be a lot of really interesting emotional resonance and context for something that somebody says that is not the usual thing to say. I have a character who you know gets picked up. Basically, he's in disguise and he's out on the town and he gets picked up by this woman who basically wants to have a fling with him, and at a certain point he tells her that she's beautiful, and she's like, "Oh, you're so cute." Like, but it's like the weirdest thing for him to say in that context, right? Mm-hmm. So making sure that we're not sort of sitting on our assumptions about what people should and should not say is useful. And this is kind of a fraught thing, because when I say that we need to think through everything that people should say, I don't mean that we should make people really earthy and direct and possibly, like, make our readers uncomfortable just because we can. Right? I mean, because I think some people take this kind of discussion that way. I just want to see, what are our parameters? What are people talking about? What are they not talking about? There is a lot of shock value in having, certain kinds of things happen that people in our world find inappropriate or non-standard, at least. Yeah. But yes, this is not about just going for shock value,
Yeah. There's a thing that I'm trying to find, and I can't remember what I called it, so I can't find it. It's a border condition thing where somebody from moves to a new place, new culture, new country, and he meets a woman, and their understanding of who gives their name first, of how introductions are made, is very different.
Okay.
He does not give her his name because she hasn't asked for it. And it's not polite for him to say, "I'm so-and-so," if she hasn't indicated a desire to know. Whereas, in her world, you don't go anywhere with a guy if you don't know his name.
Right. But obviously it's his job to give it to you, not your job to ask for it.
Yeah. So it's a different thing.
So you show two cultures at work here, colliding with different expectations of what they're expecting. And it's not this; it's orthogonal to each other's expectations.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I like border conditions.
Well, so one of the things that we haven't really dealt with yet is the question of, I guess, heteronormativity, because that's a big question, right?
Yeah.
And I can't say that I move in a lot of circles where I would know the different kinds of social mores surrounding expressing attraction, etc. You know, in the gay community, for example. But I do know that, you know, we read up on various things, so we need to make sure that we're thinking through that not everybody in a society is going to be doing this the same way.
Yeah. And different societies will handle these things differently. In our society, because of the history of it not being safe for people to know that you're gay, finding out if the person you're attracted to is safe to let them know is tricky. But if you have a society where it just ain't that big a deal,
right,
then the whole system changes. You know, the expectations and what you're willing to say and what you feel safe saying. It's different.
And then, so for example, there's also the question of have you guys heard about like demisexual and demi-romantic?
Heard, yeah, but I couldn't.
So I've been doing some research on this, so I will not claim to anybody to be an expert on this. So go do your research if you're watching this. But basically, the way that I have heard it explained is that a person who is demi is not immediately attracted to a person, but has to have quite a serious platonic relationship with them before they feel any sort of, in the case of demisexual, any sort of physical attraction. So, yeah. But anyway, so we can't assume we can't assume anything, even that, you know, we often talk, actually, in our society, there is this pattern of talking as though okay, so this is let me contextualize this. This is a pattern that you see in homophobic talk, right? Where we talk about, or some people talk about gay people as though they are automatically attracted to everyone they see, right? Which, when you think about it, is kind of ridiculous, because I don't know anyone who's attracted to everyone they see, even if they claim to be attracted to everyone they see, right?
Yeah, and that in the most pernicious versions is that they're going to act in an antisocial manner on those attractions.
Yes. Right.
I mean, the whole don't ask, don't tell in the 1990s in the armed forces was kind of predicated. Oh yeah, you don't want somebody who's attracted to you in the foxhole because they might do something sort of nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, and in fact, we talk about men that way too, as though men are attracted to everyone they see, and you know, if she walked in there in that outfit, you know, she should expect that something's gonna happen, right? It's part of rape culture too. That same pattern.
She was asking for it, wearing
right. Well, that you should expect.
This enormous
men are, you know, attracted to everyone they see, and you know, if you happen to be the one that catches their eye because of whatever it is you're wearing, that you know that you should expect antisocial behavior, right?
But this is the same focus that goes with men who make a point of telling a woman that they're not attracted to her, because that's the whole issue. Am I attracted to this person sexually or not? That's it. That's what they care about. That's their focus. And so that, I mean, these are the kind of people who are going to say, that is my focus in life. So that must be everybody's focus in life.
Yeah, well, that is that is something we could talk about in almost any hangout where we're talking about human attitude.
Yeah,
the expectation that everybody thinks the way I do.
So, yeah, but this one in particular. So it's the assumption that everybody has the same standards of attraction, and the same focus on attraction.
Right.
That it is romance. Now, I'm reading the chat there.
So actually probably relevant to this is the question of makeup. I spent some time actually designing a makeup habit for one of the casts in Varan. And because I started thinking about it and I was like, well, the artisans would totally wear makeup, right? And then I was like, well, but why? Well, obviously because it's art, right? But then the question became, well, what is the purpose? Like, because why do people in our society wear makeup? Well, is it to look attractive? I guess so. So I think that's how it relates to the topic of this hangout. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to just have these people wearing makeup to generically look attractive, right? Because other people in the society aren't going to be doing it for that reason, and so why should they? So what exactly is their deal? And there's at least one other group in the society that puts marks on their faces based on what they do, like their job, their line of work. And so it's like, oh, well, wouldn't that be interesting? So if you had, if your art was one thing, you might have one type of lipstick color. And then if it was another thing, you'd have another type of lipstick color, right? And then things started getting interesting. So I was like, okay, so color of lipstick is, sort of your profession, right? And so then the question is, well, so, okay, so I like Varan to be very consent-based. Or at least I like to build sort of aspects of consent into a lot of various things. So I was like, okay, so if you were looking for love, how would you mark yourself differently from if you were not? And so then I was like, ooh, well, that sounds kind of interesting. So what I decided was that if you were looking for love, Jamaharon, you would actually paint both of your lips. But if you were just, being professional, you would only paint the bottom one. Right? Yeah. And as yet, I have never seen a circumstance in which somebody has painted both of their lips as a result.
But you're ready.
I'm not on the cartoon and cast dating scene very much in my books. But we do things, right? We do things to try to sort of indicate that we might be, interested in some attention. And in our world, it's really not that clear cut when it's just sort of the conventional expected attractiveness and when it's I'm specifically looking for something.
I'm thinking of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I mean, it's not makeup. I'm thinking of the planet Risa.
Right, I was mentioning that Jamaharon, wasn't it? I'm looking for Jamaharon.
Okay, I missed the reference entirely. Oh, that's what that thing is called.
Me too.
I thought that was thought it was from one of your worlds I was thinking of.
No, actually, no. So, the Jamaharon reference is Star Trek. Sorry.
Oh, I missed entirely. Yeah, the little statue thingy that Riker gets Picard to.
And that's not the name of the statue either. That's the name of what you're looking for if you have the statue.
Oh, okay. It's been a long time since I watched that episode. But yeah, we have nothing in our society like that. Oh crap, Carla, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, and that it makes things harder. We have a lot of we lack a lot in the way of defining boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of rules, but we don't have a lot of boundary markers.
Well, we do, but they're not necessarily in the possession of the people who might be the targets of attraction, right? I mean,
and there's an ambiguity. I mean, I can imagine an alien species, for example, like something based on, say, mandrills, where if they're looking for attraction, their private parts change color, and it's like, okay, then it's rather obvious. But yeah, us poor humans or our pure culture, yeah, it's a fumbling trying to figure out, yeah, are they interested in me or not? Maybe, I don't know. Even do I want this? Yeah. So it's a muddle.
I don't think it's helped. I don't think it's helped by the tradition and patriarchy that said that women always belong to men in some respect, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so it puts all of the boundary guardianship into the hands of the male, who is the one claiming the female. Yeah. So what it means is that it doesn't give a lot of tools to women in that circumstance. There are a lot of tools for soliciting attention, but there are fewer tools for specifically rebuffing it. I mean, so like headphones, that's one in our day and age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a tool. It's a tool that is, it's a marker that is observed in disrespect.
Mm.
What about other kind? I mean,
Yeah,
what about other kinds of attraction? Non-physical attraction,
right,
or people not in the same place. I mean, the whole event of the internet dating and those sorts of relationships.
Well, okay, so there's always that sort of, I think the photograph kind of confuses the issue, right? We always talk about whether people have things in common, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that alignment of interests is a form of attraction, I suppose. We get a certain degree of geeky pleasure out of talking about our favorite things, and if our favorite things happen to align with someone else's favorite things, then we can just geek away, right, and talk about our favorite things together. Right. So I guess that would be one form of platonic attraction.
Yeah. But it's a word that is, attraction is a loaded word.
Right. Absolutely.
Because if you use that word, assumptions might be made by observers. Not necessarily the person you're attracted to, that you're looking for something beyond geek out sessions.
Yeah. Yep. But on the other hand, we do feel platonic attraction actually quite a lot, right? I mean, are you where you are in a group of people and you go, oh man, that person's interesting. I want to talk to them for like an hour. Right?
Yeah. And then I want to go home to my
going, wow, they're hot, or even, ooh, they're good looking. You're like, I have to talk to this person because it's going to be really interesting, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, Che's saying it's really hard to walk up to somebody and go, "Be my friend."
It's true. It's right. True.
Well, it gets worse as an adult of like trying to find friends. Like there's at least one sort of local person who I sort of desperately want to be friends with, but it just doesn't like work. You know, making friends as an adult because everyone's busy. And everyone has lives and kids and jobs, and you just like when you're a kid, you go to school, you're in the same room with a bunch of people the same age as you, and you're all doing the same thing, and so you kind of automatically have like this pool of people to like choose from, and you kind of got like the same thing in college too. But then like as an adult, there's a whole, I think it was a New Yorker article about trying to make friends as an adult, and it's worth digging up.
Yeah, it is. You know, interestingly enough, I think that I think you're onto something kind of interesting here, because it is kind of hard to make friends as an adult, and but when you look around and you look at the con-going scene, that's a bunch of people trying to hang out with people who share interests with them, right?
You know what? I think I've only made, and they didn't last, but there's only been a few conventions where I've actually made friends and then saw them for a few years repeatedly, and now I'm out of touch with like both of them.
Well, you know, it's funny because there are some people who I only see at conventions.
Yeah, I think it's like you have to go a lot, and you have to go consistently, and you have to be able to make friends.
Making friends is hard anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just tough. It's sort of like a knack that I feel like I lack. And the same way that people make friends on the internet, like good friends on the internet, I have no idea how people do that either. So I'm completely mystified.
Well, part of it is recognizing a friend when you have one, recognizing a friendship when it exists. I have a group of people that I see, I actually see in person on a regular basis. Usually it's Thursdays, but not today because it's the person who hosts it's my knitting group. And the person who hosts the group is out of town for holidays. But they consider themselves to be my friends, and I'm working around to understanding that, how that relationship is, and how it's a friendship. It doesn't, you know, I hardly ever see them outside of that setting. But
well, it is interesting, you know, because that's I'm going to put friendship on our list of topics.
Explore in detail, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that could be really interesting to talk about and explore.
Yeah.
So thanks for putting us on to that, Che, and also Morgan. What were you going to say, Paul? I mean, it's 5 o'clock, but I did want to hear what you had to say.
It was just a mention of we've all seen the trailer for the at least the teaser for the new Doctor Who, where the new Doctor says, "Will you be my new best friends?"
Yes.
Yeah, instead of companions, friends. I mean, explicitly tying into that the companions are the Doctor's friends in his now her journey.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, cool. I think we better wrap it up there. But thank you both for coming, and thank you, Che, also for being here, even though I really haven't done you justice because you've been on chat.
It's okay.
Well, we did cover some things. So anyway, yes, I'm going to have to keep doing this on Thursdays for the next 2 weeks because of events surrounding my kids' schools. So just so you know, I don't think I had a topic for next week, but I think friendship is good. This one ended up being exclusively about attraction, which is fine. So I'm going to want to come back and talk about affection and love later.
Yeah, it was too big for one shot.
Yeah, you know what? I had lots of just sort of superficial thoughts, but this is dive, so we go deep.
There could also be like courtship rituals.
Yeah.
Could be its own topic as well.
Yeah, so we'll have to talk about that. Let's do friendship next week, though.
Friendship is magic.
Friendship is magic. Maybe we can talk about ponies next week. Anyway, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop the broadcast.